Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schmidt List Live. I'm your host, Kurt Schmidt, president and partner at Foundry, and I am excited today to be talking to my friend Jenna. We're going to be talking about all things social media, all the things you need to know, and, a lot of really interesting discussions. Jenna's been doing social media for so long, and she's going to help us understand what are some things we need to be focused on personally and professionally in the upcoming year. But before we get started, I do have to mention that we are hiring at Foundry. Check it out, foundrymakes.com/careers. We're looking for a number of positions right now. So if you don't see something there that necessarily just matches what you do, go ahead and drop us a note. We'd be happy to chat. We're always happy to chat about stuff. So as you know, you're watching a live stream. I'm doing a live stream, and the benefit of doing the live stream and the podcast and all these different things over the years has allowed me to meet fantastic people over and over again. And I'm excited to introduce you to one of those fantastic people, Jenna Redfield. Jenna, how are you today?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
All right. So Jenna, tell me about the work you do. You work in social media. What's the type of work you do, and who do you do it for?
Yeah, so I am a social media coach. I call myself a social media trainer. So I help teach and educate small businesses about marketing. Anything from their websites to social media to content marketing, even things like SEO and blogging. So I kind of run the gamut on everything digital marketing, which is why I've kind of changed my name over the years and what I do. But most people know me for social media because that's kind of what I originally branded myself as and what I mostly do. So that's kind of what I do. I also run a local organization called Twin Cities Collective, which I've been doing for 4.5 years. And that is probably where most people know me from because we've grown such a large platform during that time and done a lot of things locally. So if you're in the Twin Cities area, make sure to check it out because it's really focused specifically mostly here in Minnesota.
Good. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. And I want to jump right into some questions that I've been getting from people that you specifically work with, business owners and small businesses. What is the distinction between how, when you're working with a small business, a lot of times it is you're working directly with the owners or the founders or those types of people. Do you specifically give different advice for how they should be marketing their business versus how they should be branding themselves professionally? What is is there a line there or is there no line there?
I think it depends on the business
because
some of the people, they're the face, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I
Exactly.
think there's some people where it's more of a business and people don't know who's behind it. So I think that it depends on the type of business. It depends on how you started it. For example, there's some businesses where the business is their name, right?
Right.
I think
Exactly.
that can be a little bit, yours is, you got your last name in the podcast title. So if somebody else came on the Schmidt List and ran it, I feel like people would be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. So I think you're the face of this. I'm the face of Twin Cities Collective, but I did name it something differently. So if I were to bring on other people or something, it actually existed before me. So that's the other thing too, that a lot of people don't know. It used to be just a blogging group that I took over. So I kind of changed the name and everything, but I still was like, people, if they maybe followed it back then, didn't know that it changed hands,
Yep. Well, and that's the thing is so if I've got a small business and I'm thinking about social media this year, there's so many platforms, Jenna. We could go through them all. There's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, all these different things. Now, would the advice kind of be the same? Does it depend on the business on which platform you should be on? And, let's just pick one, for example, Instagram. I normally think of retail, e-commerce is a great space for that. What else works well on Instagram?
I would say most service-based businesses.
Okay.
So that's coaches, fitness, food, bloggers.
Okay.
I would say that B2B, not so much, my dad works at Cargill. They're not on Instagram. There's certain businesses, maybe bigger businesses that wouldn't make sense to be on that platform. I think if it's a B2C, you're really going there specifically to find an audience. Also, it's very interactive and very much a video-centric platform. So if you're not planning to make video, which like reels and stories, that's really what it is nowadays, you might be better off on like LinkedIn, So it's like thinking about like the content that you're making. For example, if you're a blogger, you should be on Pinterest because it's all traffic based. It's not actually a social media platform. It's actually a search engine.
Okay.
So a lot of people don't think about Pinterest that way. It's really like, it's like Google Images.
Like a visual
honestly.
search engine. Yeah.
And then things like TikTok. I love TikTok personally. I'm on there a lot, but you definitely have a certain demographic on there. So if you're trying to get to people over 40, TikTok is just not the platform for it. So I think it really depends on your demographics. It depends on what your business is. And that's kind of what I help with is telling people, okay, you should be spending more time on this platform and less on this platform. But at the same time, a lot of them are kind of merging into each other. Everyone now has vertical video, including LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube Shorts has been blowing up lately. Snapchat, TikTok, every single platform has vertical video, which is why I've been really focused on that because I went to school for video. I have a really big video background. Nowadays, I highly recommend making your own if you can, not having to hire out a videographer. You do this yourself. You have a camera, you set it up and you don't have to pay someone to, do all this for you every time. You just have the equipment available, right?
I don't have to pay someone to put up with how annoying I would be. Well, let's talk. I'm going to jump around a bit, but well, let's talk about like old school stuff. So does email marketing still work? Versus like everybody always likes to focus on TikTok and all these different things, but what about things like email and newsletters and those types of things? What type of business works well with those? Is it all businesses or should it be more specific?
I always say start an email list because you never know what's going to happen to a platform. I don't know if you remember last fall when TikTok was like on the verge every week of being shut down because of the political stuff. Yeah. And it was terrifying for a lot of people because they had only spent the time building up TikTok. They hadn't tried to get people off and joining their email list or even following them on Instagram or on YouTube or wherever the people from TikTok go. So for me, I'm always about never put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to a social media platform. You never know, your account could get taken off. Your YouTube could get demonetized. I mean, this has happened to so many people over the last year, very famous people, where all of a sudden they do something and they get canceled or whatever, and then now they have no income. So it's like, I think that it is scary for a lot of businesses where they're like, what if Facebook, for example, the whole Facebook ad thing right now is kind of crazy.
Right.
And like there's people are just like freaking out, which I don't know. I think that's a little over whatever. But I think for me, it's like social media is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So like try different platforms, see which ones work, but don't just rely on one, I think is my biggest piece of advice. And like just and you have to kind of natively post too. I'm all about repurposing content, but it has to be content that makes sense on that platform. Like I found that I put like podcast clips on TikTok, they just don't click as well as doing like a funny, entertaining video that still has some sort of call to action. So it's like I've learned it's a lot of trial and error, honestly. I still struggle, and I've been doing this for 5-6 years, like every single day. Like I still am learning social media. I love it because it's so expansive. It's constantly changing. I love constantly changing things. I love how insanely hard it is because it's hard to get good content that converts. You're constantly having to learn new things, and I just love the challenge of it. And some people hate that because it's always changing.
Right, because it's a moving target, right?
It is.
Well, and let me ask you about that then. So, it sounds like what you're saying is some of these newer platforms, they're definitely more, you can get followings and you can get in front of people, but the videos need to be a bit more entertaining. Whereas maybe Instagram and some of these other places, they can be a bit more educational. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I would say I always try to combine both.
Okay.
Right? So I never create a video that's entertaining without a purpose. I always think that content that's just content is just noise. So for me, every time I make a video, there's some call to action. So I'm taking a trend, but then I'm adding some sort of call to action at the end or reason that I'm making it. Because otherwise, I don't see the value in something when it's just entertainment. And that's just me because I'm doing it from a business perspective. If my whole thing was, if I was an influencer and all of my goal was trying to get you to follow me, I would just do entertainment. But my goal is to use social as a funnel to my services. So I'm going to be making content that actually tells you something. So I have like it's called terms. I made a framework for myself. Let's see if I can remember everything, but it's like T stands for like tutorials, and then E stands for educational. Like I don't even remember all of them, but basically I have like I'll send it to you, but it's a framework that I like go through every day. I'm like, does it have at least one of these things? Is it motivational? That's M.
Sure, yeah.
S, like there's just like I have all the different types of videos that I could make, and then really focusing on trends, because you do have to pay attention to, okay, what song is trending on TikTok this week? How can I repurpose that to something I want to
Right.
do? And for me, video is a huge part, but some people, I think at this point you kind of have to accept that video is part of social. Like you can't avoid it. I'm actually teaching a video editing class next week because I find that there's so many people that don't know how to make videos, whether it's on your computer or on your phone, which I've
Hmm.
now started editing all of my TikToks on my phone because I'm like, it's so much quicker.
Yeah.
And I think that they reward that I used to make these super edited videos on Final Cut and put them on TikTok, and they did terrible. And I think it's because
Sure.
people knew they were over edit. Like that's not what the platform is. I had to learn that. And I
Yeah.
learned that if I can just quickly edit something in my phone, those are the videos that go a little bit more viral.
Well, I think that's what's also hard for businesses. I mean, not putting out something that's like perfect on brand and on tone is difficult, right? So, to your
Mhm.
point, if you're a B2B client and you want something more polished and professional, then maybe LinkedIn is probably a better place to start sharing that content. Where do you start when you're working with a business? So let's back up a little bit. You walk in and they don't have
Mhm.
much of a social media.
Yeah.
Maybe they have their name on some platforms, but they post like once every 2 months or things like that.
Yeah.
Where do you start with folks to figure out what they should be doing? What should they be
Mhm.
thinking about?
I kind of take two different routes. So the first thing I do is I have a brand questionnaire that I send to everyone. So basically it's a bunch of questions. Where are you at? What are you on? What are your goals? Because again, I always think of social media as a means to an end for a lot of people. So okay, well, if your goals are more sales and whatever you're trying to sell, what are those goals? Because that will indicate where you need to be spending your time. So for example, if you like e-commerce, let's just think of like a Shopify account. They are going to probably start on Facebook and Instagram just because that's where most people are.
Yep.
But I would then recommend, I would not say YouTube, I would not say LinkedIn, but I would go more of the Pinterest, TikTok route, because those are platforms that are more geared towards sales, like product sales. Versus if you're a service-based business, I would say LinkedIn all the way, right? Because you're connecting and networking and people are hiring you as a person. So that's why I think some people spend time on LinkedIn when I'm like, you should be spending this time on Pinterest. So I think it's like, for me, I have to get a sense of where they're at. Also, what capacity they have, because sometimes they're doing it themselves. Sometimes
Yep.
they have, like, I had a client who had a team, right? She had people assisting her. Then there's other ones where I had a client where she was the front desk receptionist and the social media manager. So she had to, so one of the things I helped set up for them was they'd never had online scheduling before. And I'm like, this will free you up so much to then be able to spend more time on social. But because she was literally answering the phones with no automated system, so it's almost like time management as well. That's another thing, is like, how do I automate some of this? I just in the last few weeks, Canva now has Instagram scheduling. It has scheduling for every single app: TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook,
Okay.
Twitter, everything. A lot of people don't know this. And I'm like, do you know how much time you can save by making one piece of content and sharing it multiple places? It's like, it's all about like time management. I think that's actually a bigger issue for a lot of people, is like, I have all these ideas, I don't have the time. And I'm like, I'm trying to help you get back more time.
Well, and that's really what I hear. I think is the biggest barrier for folks is having the time
Mhm.
to do all these things, right? Because one of the things, even our business struggled with is that, when we were building our marketing team, do you start with strategy, but then
Mm,
who's going to execute?
yeah.
Or if you have executioners, people that are good at creating content and things like that, but then our overall strategy. So where do you start? I think is where a lot of people get stuck,
Yeah, and that's why I always try to start with a strategy session
Yeah.
because I had someone come to me wanting help with they wanted me to teach them Final Cut. And I'm like, that's great. I can do that. I offer hourly, training sessions, but we ended up doing an hour of just strategy because I'm like, she wasn't sure what she'd use it for or like all that stuff. So it's like in order to actually get to the training and the education, sometimes you need to know where you're going. So it's kind of like a roadmap to figure out, okay, well, I've done this with multiple clients who think that they know what they want and then get into the process and they're like, oh crap, this isn't what I thought. So it's like, I think it's always important to start with the foundation of strategy and then move into execution because I think starting with execution, that's why you don't get the results. I think a lot of people give up on social media because it's not working as fast as they hope it does. I think a lot of people don't realize in order to get success, it has to be a long term thing. And a lot of people don't have the patience or the willingness to do that. And so I always tell them go with ads because they are fast and they're more effective if you're just looking for straight up results right away. But I'm the kind of person that I'm like, if I want to grow a brand, I want it to be long term. So for
Yeah,
me, it's
sure.
more valuable to spend the time building my like I feel like I've spent years building up my name, and that's more valuable than spending $100 on an ad from somebody who doesn't know anything about me, you know? So
Right. Well, and that's to your point. I think, where I see the big opportunity this year, and you can tell me what you think, but I think it is in that storytelling. And I think it's been there, but I think people are really starting to get the idea like, even if it's a manufacturing company and they're posting things on LinkedIn, just posting pictures of whatever their end product is not enough, right? Having a story around it, right? Telling the story about the people who worked on it, telling a story about the problem that it solves. I think storytelling is such an underrated, a skill that these businesses need.
yeah, I've read so many books about storytelling over the last couple of years. And I was actually I don't know if I was listening to something or I was talking to someone the other day, but they talked about like, I was on Clubhouse. I was like trying to remember. But basically, what they said was people you don't realize that the stupid things that you think are stupid and people don't care about in your business are actually what people are interested in. I think
Right. Right.
people are so like, oh, that's like, for example, it was my friend, I think it was my friend Bobby. She's out in Chicago and she said she worked for a local I think it was like the government and they did a video about like snowplows and like how the snowplows work and it got such great traction because no one ever sees that stuff, right? And so it's boring to the
To
people
them,
that
it's
work in
everyday
it.
stuff, right?
It's everyday stuff, but to most people, it's new information. And that's what I found with like TikTok videos. Like people that clean cars or carpets or those people are killing it because people never get to see that. It's very satisfying to watch. So I think just kind of taking back and being like, if I wasn't in this industry, what would I find interesting?
Yeah.
And I think I have to do that constantly because I always assume everyone knows what I know, but they obviously do not. So it's like I forget what people don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I constantly have to tell myself is I've been doing this for so long. I need to remember that people that have maybe never been in marketing before probably don't know half of what I'm talking about. So
Yep.
I need to constantly not dumb myself down, but really make it a lot easier to understand and not be so in my head about it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, working in technology and the work that we do, everything we do is custom software, custom design. And so, I've had to get really good at metaphors over the years, It's like building a house or it's like driving a car. And it's like, in order to really help drive home kind of it might sound complex, but it is very similar to things that you experience just in life, but to your point, I think people find it very fascinating to learn about, I've always, at other businesses I've worked, they're like, people don't care about how the sausage is made. And I'm like, actually, some people do want to see how the sausage is made.
I mean, I'm fascinated by everything. Like, I just don't think that anything is too boring. And maybe if it is, you'll get that by the views, right?
Sure.
You'll understand that based off of user feedback. I did a LinkedIn poll yesterday, did so well. And I had never done a LinkedIn poll before. And I'm like shocked at how many views it got. And so I think it's because I asked a general question that anyone could relate to. I
Yeah.
think that's another thing that's really important is relatability. I think when it comes to all these algorithms, they want people to rewatch it and share it. That's
Yep.
like the two points. It's not so much the likes, it's how many times do they rewatch it and how many times do they share it. That's actually
Hmm.
the really important part, especially on like TikTok.
Okay.
Is because they have all these things. It's like, oh, people are sharing this outside the platform, or oh, people are watching this multiple times because they want to see it again. That's kind of some of the more metrics that people don't realize. So how are you making content that's relatable, that people are like, oh, that, or they laugh, or they're like, oh, that happened to me. I think that's something. I think if it's just straight up promotions, no one cares and they
Yeah,
tune
nobody
out.
cares.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about kind of what to be watching out for this year. Well, like you said, there's so many platforms, right? And you just mentioned another one, Clubhouse, which is
Yeah.
another one that people have been talking about. What's some of your advice for people? What areas should they be focused on this year? Where do you see a lot of traction happening? From a business standpoint versus a more personal branding standpoint.
Yeah, I think it depends on your business, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the world opening up,
Yeah,
because like for the
right.
last year, we've really focused on a lot of, for example, like virtual Zoom
Yep.
conferences or
Yep.
things where everything's online. And I'm curious. So I'm launching my first conference this fall, and it's going to be a hybrid in person online. And it'll be interesting as we move forward. It's like maybe more and more of it will be in person because of COVID. So it's like interesting for me to see that part of social, because I do think COVID has changed how we view the internet. It is a lifeline for most people, but
Yep.
then it's also, figuring out, okay, with TikTok, it's here to stay, at least I've seen. So it's like, okay, people were hesitant to join. And now I think people have realized it has such power to make you go viral if you do it right, and to sell out book sales, that kind of stuff. it can
Sure.
it can really have a crazy, it's almost like a Shark Tank effect, sometimes even more so than Shark Tank, because things all of a sudden, like I've literally seen people sell out their products because something goes viral on TikTok. It's hard to go viral on other platforms. It's hard to go viral on YouTube. It's hard to go viral on even on Instagram
Yeah.
sometimes. So if you're looking for virality, TikTok is the place to be. But if you're looking for, like, I'm really focused on my YouTube channel because YouTube videos are so great for keyword optimization.
Hmm.
They're great for teaching and educating. It is a lot harder to grow a YouTube channel. So if you're not willing to do the work, then that one might not be the best. But I would say my favorite overall platform is obviously Instagram. It's where I spend the most time in terms of like my audience building. It has so many different options. They just launched Reels this summer. They also have something called guides. I teach a lot of Instagram stuff, so that's something I know a lot about.
Yeah.
Facebook, I would say, is the one that's kind of the one I'm a little bit nervous about, just because of the stuff with the ads, but also just less and less people are on that. I personally have found myself to be on it less. The only place I ever go on Facebook nowadays is groups. So
Sure.
I'm always in groups. That's like the only thing I'm doing. So I'm not really big on Twitter. That's not something I've spent a lot of time on. Pinterest is kind of an underdog, I think, in my opinion. I think not enough people are on there. I think it has a really big potential for traffic. And then LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. I think that's one of my favorite platforms also. It's also underrated in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think that it's almost like Facebook, but for business. And then Clubhouse, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Clubhouse. There's going to be competitors, but I
Yep.
have a full like masterclass where I kind of go through all the different apps that's on my website. But I think that for me, it kind of goes back to being a marketing salesperson, like figuring out, okay, well, it doesn't really matter what platform you're on as long as you're making good content and that you build an audience. So I think that people kind of spend too much time worrying about if they're on the right platform. Obviously, if it's not working, maybe try something else. But like, I think sometimes people spend a month and they're like, it's not working. And
Right.
I think that that's kind of a bad, you have to like learn the platform. You have to kind of
You have to
get
spend time on it.
involved.
Yeah.
You have to immerse yourself in it. But it took me a long time to get into TikTok. Honestly, it took me months to figure it out.
Sure.
Like I
Yeah.
was like, what? Like I just didn't get it was like I just had to learn the culture. I didn't understand the idea of duetting or using somebody else's audio. That was a new thing for me. I always thought, oh, that's bad. You can't use somebody
Yeah,
else's.
you're stealing somebody's stuff.
Or even copying a trend. That always was seen as such a bad thing on YouTube or on Instagram. It's like, oh, you're copying them. But that is like what TikTok is like basically doing trends. And I think that, and I'm older than most people on there. I'm almost 30. But yet I feel like ancient on there.
Sure.
And I'm still in my 20s. Like, I feel like half the time I'm like, what are these people saying? So I think that it's like, if you feel out of place, just, work through that. It's a mindset thing. Like, you may not be the person that they're targeted for, but there are a lot of people over the age of 40 on TikTok that are killing it.
Yeah.
And I think don't discount it just because you have a preconceived notion. A lot of people think, oh, I don't dance, I don't need to be on TikTok. I'm like, I don't watch any dancers. My entire For You page is businesses, skincare, and like chiropractors. Like,
sure,
I'll be honest,
right.
like that's who I watch because I find that content interesting. So TikTok kind of mends to your interests. So that's kind of my like run through of all the apps. I mean, I think again, video is just where it's got to be. I mean, I'm very pro video, and I think that it's the best way to quickly share your thoughts and get your stuff out to your audience.
I agree. And that's why I give the same advice for Clubhouse. I've been spending a lot of time like you on Clubhouse, and it's the same advice I've been giving to people, which is, the longer you're on there, the more you can curate the people you're following, the types of things you're interested in, because there is a lot of like, yay, rah, rah, entrepreneur, go sort of, make $1 million in a day sort of stuff on there. Yeah. But I've found that like following certain people, staying in rooms, less than like 50 people or so, like I'm getting a lot of great information out of it and enjoying participating in it. But like you said, I mean, it's a time suck, I mean, it just, it can really take off. All right, Jenna. So thank you for taking the time today. What if I want to know more about the work you do, and I'm interested in talking to you about how maybe you can help me with my social media needs, or if I'm interested in joining the Twin Cities Collective group and finding out more? Tell me about all the things, Jenna.
Yeah. So I have many, many websites. I just joined a new platform that allows me to basically have as many websites as I want. So I have bought like 8 domains this year. But if you go, I know it's serious. It's crazy.
It's awesome.
But so if you go to Collective Social Media, that's if you want to learn more about my coaching. I offer a free call to everyone that is interested just to learn more. If you go to TwinCitiesCollective.com, you can learn about our Facebook group and our upcoming conference. We also have monthly events. I'm doing my video editing one I mentioned. I also have my podcast. So if you go to CollectiveMarketingPodcast.com, and then I also have an online academy. So if you're just needing like the information, I teach like classes that are pre-recorded. So that's CollectiveMarketingAcademy.com.
Okay.
I think that's all of them. But yeah, so it's just basically Collective Social Media is kind of the hub. So you can find everything that way. And then on Instagram, LinkedIn, just search my name and you'll find me on there.
It's awesome. Well, and I appreciate all the work you do, Jenna. You've been a fantastic contributor, especially in the Twin Cities scene over the past few years. And I know you've helped level up a lot of people's game. And also, I appreciate how you've, really amplified voices of people out there who, I never knew were existed. So I really enjoy the podcast. And I continue to wish you the most success you can have. I'm just super happy to have you on the show. So thank you for taking the time.
Kurt. Yeah, you guys should listen to the episode that Kurt was on as well. So of my podcast.
Yes, I was on Jenna's podcast. Yep. If you want to hear more of my voice, go ahead and do that. All right, Jenna, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your most important day today. What is it? Thursday. Yes, it's a beautiful day out. I don't know why you're inside watching this. You should be outside. It's ridiculous. But before I go, I should mention that we are hiring. Yeah, that's right. Go and check out the website, foundrymix.com/careers. We might be looking for you, and you should join us. So next week, we've got more live shows and a lot of more things, a lot of things coming up. Also, for some reason, I've happened to have woken up on Twitter lately. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can just search for me there. I'm enjoying it. I don't know why. I don't know. I think I've figured out kind of what I want to say there. So I'm happy to have you join me and follow me there too. If you liked the video today, hit the like button, hit the like and the thing and share with folks, because it's really important for algorithms, just like Jenna talked about. So thank you for taking the time to join me. We'll see you next time.